My husband's brother lied. I seduced him and was carrying his baby. My husband didn't even blink. He spat on me, his mom cursed me, and his sisters dragged me through the streets. I disappeared without a word. 2 years later, he found me and saw the child. His face went pale. He whispered, "Is that I shut the door? Hey, Reddit. Before we dive in, I've noticed the channel is losing some traction and subscribing is the best way to support us. It's quick, free, and it truly helps grow this amazing community. Let's start the story. I met Sebastian when I was 22, fresh out of college, and full of belief in happily ever afters. He was magnetic in every sense, composed, eloquent, a man whose silence commanded attention and whose smile could disarm anyone. We met at a tech conference, and while I was there assisting with logistics, he was already a rising name in cybersecurity. He asked if I wanted to grab coffee after panel. I said yes. That one coffee turned into 5 more that week. By month 2, we were inseparable. By year 1, I had moved into his apartment. Sebastian proposed under a cherry blossom tree in the spring. Of course, I said yes. The man I thought I knew, thoughtful, attentive, calm, seemed like the safest harbor I could ask for. His family was a different reality. From the beginning, they treated me like a blemish on their otherwise perfect social image. His mother, cold as winter stone, would smile at me like I was a servant who had forgotten her place. His sisters rarely spoke unless they were speaking about me, always with veiled condescension. But worst of all was Ferdinand, Sebastian's younger brother. Ferdinand was loud, arrogant, and reeked of the kind of entitlement you only get when you've never had to work for anything in life. He was the family golden boy despite having accomplished nothing real. Every time he visited, his eyes would linger on me just a second too long, his jokes teetering on inappropriate, his compliments always too intimate. I told Sebastian more than once that Ferdinand made me uncomfortable. He always brushed it off. That was the first sign, but I ignored it. The real collapse came 2 years into our marriage. I had just found out I was pregnant, something Sebastian and I had quietly hoped for. I remember standing in the bathroom, hands shaking as I held the test, the little line screaming our future. My heart soared. We had made something beautiful together. I couldn't wait to tell him. I never got the chance. 3 days later, I came home from a doctor's appointment to find the house in chaos. Sebastian stood in the living room, pale and trembling. His mother was there too, eyes blazing like she was waiting to see me burn. His sisters flanked her like guard dogs. Ferdinand sat calmly on the couch, arms crossed, a smug smile dancing on his lips. I barely got a word out before it began. Sebastian didn't ask me a single question, not a breath of hesitation. He spat in my face. My husband, the man I loved, spat in my face like I was filth. Then he screamed, said I was disgusting, that I had seduced his brother and gotten pregnant with his child. He called me a manipulative, lying whore. His mother screamed curses I wouldn't repeat if I lived 100 years. His sisters lunged for me. They dragged me outside by the arms, one barefoot, barely dressed, carrying nothing but my purse and confusion. People watched from windows as the scene unfolded. Nobody helped. I fell to the ground. I remember clutching my stomach, terrified that the stress would cost me the baby. Ferdinand stood at the doorway, sipping from a glass of whiskey, watching like he had just won a game. I never got the chance to speak. Not one chance. I left that night. I went to the bus station with only the cash I had on me. I left my phone, my ID, everything else behind. I knew if I stayed anywhere traceable, they tried to ruin what little was left of me. I vanished. I moved 3 states away, used a pseudonym, found shelter through a battered women's service, and started over. I worked temp jobs until I landed something stable. I changed my hair, avoided social media, and gave birth to my son in a quiet, mid-sized hospital where nobody asked too many questions. He was born healthy with Sebastian's exact eyes. Every time I looked at him, it hurt. Not because I didn't love him, I did. Fiercely. But because I saw the men who didn't believe in me. The men who cast me out like trash without a single second of trust. The man who let his twisted brother lie, knowing full well what that lie would cost me. My son grew beautifully, bright eyes, soft hair, a little dimple in his chin just like Sebastian's. For 2 years, we lived in silence and safety. I created a life for us, even if it was modest. I found joy in small things, bedtime stories, peanut butter sandwiches, giggles during bath time. He became my entire world. I told myself I was past it until one rainy Thursday afternoon when I opened the door and came face to face with the ghost I had buried. Sebastian. He looked different. Haggard. Thinner. Older. His eyes, those same eyes my son had, were wide and bloodshot. Like he hadn't slept in days. I froze. My body turned to stone. He whispered my name. Not like a question, like a prayer. I didn't speak. He looked down. Standing just behind my legs was my son. He peeked out, clutching my jeans, his little face curious but cautious. He looked up at Sebastian, and something in that moment broke. Sebastian stumbled back like he'd been punched in the stomach. He dropped his umbrella. His lips parted. He took a shaky step forward. He whispered, "Is that?" I shut the door. I leaned against the closed door, heart pounding so hard I thought it might bruise my ribs from the inside. My son tugged gently at my shirt, confused by the tension but too young to understand it. "Who was that, Mama?" I swallowed. The lie came easier than I thought. "Just someone who got the wrong house, sweetheart." But deep down, I knew that knock wouldn't be the last. 3 days later, a letter arrived. No name on the envelope. Just my address, written in neat, deliberate handwriting. I stared at it for an hour before opening it. Inside was a note, only one sentence long. "I know now. Please let me explain. Please let me see him." There was no return address. I burned the letter in the sink. A week passed. Then another. I waited for him to show again, but he didn't. And part of me wished he would, just so I could finally say everything I'd kept buried for years. The betrayal, the loneliness, the injustice of being exiled without even a hearing. But it wasn't Sebastian who showed up next. It was Ferdinand. He appeared at the daycare. He came during pickup time, leaning against a rental car, dressed in a crisp blazer and dark sunglasses, like this was just another family errand. My stomach dropped the moment I saw him. I grabbed my son and turned to walk back inside, but his voice sliced through the parking lot like a whip. "He doesn't look anything like me, you know." I froze. He kept talking, walking slowly toward me, arms out in mock surrender. "That's what really did it for your husband. When he saw the photo, your son looks just like him, not me." I turned. My fists clenched. "You lied. You ruined my life. You took everything from me." Ferdinand smiled. That same smug, oily grin I remembered from the day they threw me out. "You were never supposed to keep the baby. You were supposed to crawl away and disappear. But you made it. You lived. Guess you're tougher than I thought." My legs were shaking. If not for my son in my arms, I might have thrown something at him. "You admitted it," I said. "You just admitted you lied." He shrugged. "What are you going to do? Go to the police? It's been years. No one's going to jail for being an asshole." He turned and walked away, whistling, but he'd underestimated me. Again, I called a lawyer the next day, then I called another and another. I filed for a restraining order. I documented everything. I wrote it all down. The incident at daycare, the original expulsion, the years I'd spent in hiding. 2 weeks later, I got another knock at my door. But this time, it was Sebastian. He didn't look like the men who had spat in my face. He looked like a shell, like grief had hollowed him out and was wearing his skin. I let him in. He sat on the edge of the sofa, gripping a folder with white knuckles. He spoke quietly. Ferdinand confessed. Not just to me, to our father, to his lawyer. He thought it was funny, said it was just a prank that got out of control, said he never thought I'd actually believe it. He paused, voice cracking, but I did. He handed me the folder. Inside were printed emails, screenshots, a typed letter from Ferdinand himself, written as part of a family legal dispute. Apparently, their father had finally disinherited him after learning the truth. Ferdinand had laughed at it, said he didn't care, but it was all there. He had lied. He had told Sebastian that I had seduced him, that I was carrying his child, that I had been secretly sleeping with him for months. And Sebastian, the man I once thought would stand by me no matter what, had believed every word without question. I was a coward, he whispered. I chose the easier lie instead of trusting the woman I loved. My family didn't just poison my mind. I let them. I sat silently, staring at the pages in my lap. He looked at me then, tears streaming down his face. His voice was a desperate whisper. Can I meet him? I nodded. Our son was napping. I went to his room and gently woke him. When I brought him out, he blinked sleepily, then looked at the stranger sitting in our living room. Sebastian dropped to his knees. Hi, buddy. My son tilted his head. Are you Mama's friend? Sebastian smiled through tears. I'm trying to be. Over the next few months, things moved slowly, carefully. Sebastian didn't try to force anything. He showed up, brought books, toys. He played with our son in the park. He asked questions. He listened. He never once asked me to forgive him. Until one night, after putting our son to bed, we sat on the porch. The air smelled like wet grass and jasmine. He turned to me. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I love you. I never stopped. I want to fix this if I can. I looked at him, really looked. I had loved him once, and he had destroyed me, but he had also changed. The guilt wasn't performative. It sat in his bones like a shadow. He carried it with every word, every cautious step forward. I didn't say yes, not right away, but I let him keep coming back. And months turned into a year. Our son called him Daddy for the first time on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Sebastian cried so hard, he had to pull over on the drive home. Ferdinand disappeared. After his inheritance was pulled and he was publicly disgraced by his own father, he moved abroad. Last I heard, he was working under an alias somewhere in South America. I didn't care. He was out of our lives. Sebastian and I were not what we once were, but were something new, something raw, honest, and earned. We go to therapy. We talk. We cry. We celebrate every small win, not just for our son, but for ourselves. And me, I don't flinch anymore when I hear footsteps at the door. I don't live in hiding. I don't carry the shame that was never mine to bear because I survived the lie. And now, I'm living the truth as the door clicked shut between us. I finally felt the power shift. This time, I was the one choosing who stayed in our story.